What's up, soldiers? Thanks for joining me on this video today, where we're going to talk about how to add 10% to your bench and deadlift in 12 weeks. This is all modeled after the exact program that I used to deadlift 700 and bench 380 at a body weight of 190 pounds in 2022 at the Metroflex Raw Power and Wild Game Feast. So we're going to talk about the programming principles plus the strategies, techniques, and habits that are going to get you these big gains, okay? So before we dive in, do me a favor and hit the like button, and please click subscribe to the channel to get more content on strongman, strength training, and all things to help you become your best, strongest self. So as we're diving into this, again, there's a couple different elements of this. It is important to have a good program. So we'll kind of give you an outline of what this exact program looks like, which is available for you. You can check out the link in the description below or get it as a part of your membership to clubstrongman.com. But it's much more important to make sure that you have these like habits, strategies, and overall mindset approaches to the full system in order to get the most out of this. Because like if your technique sucks, you're not going to be able to capitalize on the like tricep work that you need to recruit into a bench press. Like if your technique sucks on deadlift, you're just not recruiting the right muscles and you will not be at your strongest potential. So while the programming does matter, let's talk about all that other stuff too. Now, getting right in. This starts with a periodization approach. So this is a 12-week program that has 3 4-week blocks. Our first 4-week block is an accumulation phase. So what happens during this is we're developing our work capacity. That just means developing our body's ability to handle hard, heavy workouts. So when we're getting ready to peak and get into those, 90, 95, 100, and 100+% lifts to get stronger and test our new maxes, our body is ready to handle heavy loads from this high volume stage here. We get some good benefits of things like hypertrophy and endurance in this accumulation phase because of the higher volume. Now, as you know, or maybe you don't, a bigger muscle has the potential to be a stronger muscle. It is not necessarily a bigger one, but we're giving ourselves a chance to be stronger by making ourselves a little bigger in step 1 in the accumulation phase. So that leads right into the power phase. This whole program works on decreasing volume and increasing intensity. So you're going to see things like sets of 12 to 15 here, and then down into things like 6 to 8 reps at a time when we're in this power phase, because what we're looking to do is focus on speed and use the CAT, the compensatory acceleration training method in this block. All that is applying the theory and principle of force equals mass times acceleration. We're trying to get our body to develop and produce as much force as possible. So in this stage, we're using lighter weights, might be only 70 to 80%, but we're going to be accelerating them real aggressively and real violently so we have a greater overall force development. So when we are trained to have that high output of force, we're going to take that right into the peak where we're doing heavier weights and hopefully, ideally, moving them very quick, very aggressively based on all the work that we've done in the accumulation, power, and peak phase. So very simple, but like it does take proper execution, which gets us right into our habits, right? You have to have the right technique in order to do these things successfully. So based on my own personal story, I used to bench real wide where I'd have my pinkies out on the reins almost. But since I learned from people like Josh Bryant, Jeremy Hornstra, and even Julius Maddox, I actually started to bring my hands in a lot more narrow. So it's not quite a close grip, but I was able to start recruiting a lot more of my triceps. I was able to engage my lats a lot harder by changing my width. And that really made a big difference. So you might need to take an honest assessment, even if you've been benching a certain way your whole life, like, is that really what's serving you the best, okay? If you don't have anybody check your technique, hire a coach, hire somebody for an assessment, or join us at somewhere like clubstrongman.com where you have coaches that can review your form and technique and help you get exactly what you need to improve, okay? Power. This is all about, again, that principle of power and force development. We're always trying to be as explosive and athletic as possible because one, it's just the most efficient approach. If we're doing these heavy singles down at our peak or going for that big 1 rep max, you're just wasting a bunch of energy to be somebody that moves slow. So even when we're doing lighter weights and building all of our way up to those heavy ones, we want to always be putting in a lot of intention and effort into power with every single rep, right? Pause and dead stop. Make sure that you are practicing how you play. I'll say this at least one more time, but it's very, very important. If you're going into a competition, then you need to make sure that you are abiding by those rules. You're gonna have to pause your bench press in any single competition. So if all you do is just touch and go or ramp it off your chest in training, you are not ready to actually display your strength in the best way possible, okay? Now, same with dead stops. Of course, no competition deadlift has ever started, from the top down, but I mean this more in the context of when there are sets of multiple reps, like even a set of 3, you should be dead stopping every single one of those because you're getting more practice pulling that weight off the floor, which is part of the end goal, is to pull the most weight you can off the floor one time. You're just not working as hard and not getting as much gains if you just bounce, touch and go every time with this, okay? Now this also kind of rolls into warm up and intention. With the right technique, with the right power, with pauses and dead stops, we need to make sure we're incorporating those right into our warm-ups from the very get-go. We need to make sure that we're having explosive presses off the chest. We need to make sure we're explosively pulling off the ground because that's what we're gonna try to do when it is time to actually test that number out. So just by including those into your warm-ups, you're gonna get a hell of a lot more practice and routine just by really making sure you're locked in on all those good habits from the start. I really like watching people like somebody like Eric Lillybridge or Hafthor Bjornsson, 2 of the best deadlifters of all time. Watch how they move every single one of their warm-ups from 225 to 315, 405, 5, whatever, 495, 6, whatever. It just goes on and on and on. Every single one is pulled with really explosive, violent intent. So what that's doing is priming the body to get ready to use that same level of force output at your higher weights. And that's how you should always treat your warm-ups, okay? Now, as we're doing this in your accessories, you need to make sure you're connecting your movement patterns. What do I mean by that? Since this is a bench and deadlift program, those are our 2 main focuses for this, right? So all of our accessories are specifically geared to raising those up. So when we're doing things like a lat pull down, for example, which is a complementary move to your bench press, we need to make sure that we're packing our lats and shoulders and engaging all of those muscles the exact same way, even though we're doing a pull and not a push. So what that's gonna do is get us ready to stay tight and packed to give us that nice stable base to press off of when we have heavier weights. So always connect to your movements. Like, okay, this is a lat pull down. Let's try to mimic it to a bench press, and even to a point, this specifically utilizes sternum lat pull downs where you're pulling to the exact same spot that the bar is gonna touch your chest on a bench press. So again, we're focusing on staying tight through our lats and shoulders all the way through so that when we're pressing, we have that trained ability to stay tight through our upper back and launch off our chest, right? Lastly, as always, you should be focusing on your sleep and your food. You can have the perfect system in place, but if you are not recovering and you're not eating appropriately to fuel yourself for success, you will never get the highest level of gains that you could possibly achieve, right? This truly can get you 10% onto your lifts, but if you don't eat or sleep, you might see nothing, or you might only see 1 or 2%, okay? Recovery is where you get all of those gains, especially for strength, which is so nervous system dependent. You really, really need that sleep, okay? Now, moving on, there's a lot of overlap here, but I really want you to understand some of these principles. It's important. It's worth repeating because it is just that important. Strategy, power first, always, always, always. I'm gonna go ahead and kind of tie this in to our accessories section with activation. Our goal, again, is to be as powerful as possible. So what we want to do before some of these lifts is not only warm up with powerful explosive intention, but use some accessories such as like a box jump, a plyo jump, a sandbag throw, or like a medicine ball chest pass to recruit those same muscle groups that we're about to use in a violent, forceful way. This is a concept called post-activation potentiation. And what this means is we're turning our nervous system up as high as possible by violently accelerating those lighter weights, like medicine ball chest pass. You could do like 10 pounds on this, or a sandbag throw. You could do a 20-pound sandbag throw, even if you're going up to like a 700-pound deadlift, because that's engaging like our chest, shoulders, triceps to be explosive, and then that sandbag throw, that's engaging our hips, legs, butt, low back to be explosive as well. So we're gonna take these activation movements right in, because we're focusing on power, to lead into having the potential to press as hard, as powerfully, and as forcefully as possible, right? Focus on your weak points. This goes really well with complementary. So with this program, the way it's laid out is we have tricep dips as a very big complementary movement to your bench press, because that develops lockout power like nothing else. If you're somebody that's really weak off the chest, then you might need to focus more on things like a dumbbell bench press or a camber bar bench press, which will help you get into that deeper range of motion and move through it with power. So always be focusing on those weak points and use complementary exercises when necessary. Now, as we go through our 12-week protocol, there's a lot of things built into this program where we're systematically attacking each section of the lift and kinetic chain for every movement. So you should be okay here, but I want you to have some understanding that the onus is on you. If you are really, really good at breaking the floor on a deadlift, but seem to get stuck at your knees every time, then we need to look for one or two other accessories maybe to include in there, such as like an isometric pull or a block pull or something like that, to again attack that weak point to make sure you've got no weaknesses in your chain. Once again, recover, 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 recover. So important. It's where all of your gains are made. I cannot stress that enough. Okay, more on strategy. I'm gonna lump these three together. So visualize, be routine, and practice how you play. Always visualize yourself doing a lift successfully. Okay, you never want a sliver of doubt in your mind that you're going to fail it. This is important, especially when you're going into competitions, to eliminate any sort of like competitive jitters or competition anxiety. The way you can do that is by really actually thinking about all the sights, smells, and sensations that are going on at that competition. So even weeks out, let's apply this like to a deadlift day. You know that you're going to be deadlifting on a platform, in front of an audience. You're going to have a head judge, side judge, side judge. There's probably going to be a chalk bowl over there. If you know more details about the venue, like maybe there's a curtain behind you walk through, or maybe you just walk from the side, you know there's going to be an MC calling your name saying the bar is loaded. You know there's going to be loud music. If you've ever been to a meet, you know that indistinguishable smell of chalk and baby powder and BO. So don't just think about them, but start to actually like feel them, feel the sensations, like smell that stuff, like hear the music in your head, and try to create as vivid and as real of an experience of that moment as you can, and then step up and hit the lift. The reason we want to do this is the central nervous system cannot distinguish between an extremely vivid, imagined thought and the real experience. So if we can do this over and over and over again, we're just doing it for like the 1,000th time. It's like anything else. The first time you ever tied your shoes, you were terrible at it, but now, as a grown adult, hopefully you do it without even thinking about it. That's the same with visualizing yourself in a successful environment in competition. So start applying that to not only your lifts, but it's also good to practice a couple times a week or daily for 5 to 10 minutes of quiet time at home on your own. So see yourself either in first person or watch it as like a mental movie, third person, of all the sights, sounds, and sensations going on around this. Now, when you're doing that, also make sure you're incorporating your personal routine and practicing how you play. So this is things like the start command, on a bench or a down command on the deadlift. Maybe you like to have some sort of routine where you take a big whiff of smelling salts and then, step in. Or maybe it's just the way that, if you wear wrist wraps, wrap up, okay, go. So be in a rehearsed ritual when you're visualizing. Use that all the time in your training, and then also practice how you play. Like I said, you need to know what the federation's requirements are before you're going in, okay? Believe it or not, not every bench organization has a start command. But if they do, you're gonna need to do that and make sure that you're ready for that in competition. And you can have no problems missing that command just by visualizing and having it as part of your routine, okay? The rules of the event are very important. You need to know what they are so you can practice, okay? Lastly, practice deloads, utilize deloads. So this program has deloads built in, and all that is taking, the fourth week of every block and reducing volume so that we are eliminating fatigue and elevating performance, right? Because we're gonna be working a lot. And this is, you're somebody who likes to train, it's fun to train hard and train heavy. There's also a lot of benefit to it, but what we don't want is to go too deep into fatigue and overtraining. So to avoid that, we have regularly built in deloads on week 4, week 8, and then actually week 12, which leads into a final attempt at the end of the week to test your new maxes, are deloads, so we can be fresh, recovered, our joints can feel good, and our body can feel strong and ready to lift some big weights. So very important to regularly practice deloads. Now, just a couple things that I wanted to touch on. We already kind of talked about activation, complementary, and sectional lifts, right, of your chain, but the two biggest main movers that I really like that are complementing our bench and deadlift here are half-field squats and dips, okay? So half-field squats are using a safety bar on your back. You're holding onto the rack above you, but not like bracing it to pull you up, just for stability. We'll put our feet in a deadlift stance. So we're being very intentionally complementary to a deadlift because having that weight on your upper back is going to carry over to a deadlift when you need to maintain your brace here so you're not rounding. And then also we're putting our feet in that deadlift stance just so we're mimicking the leg drive necessary in order to pull real hard and aggressive off the floor. Similarly with dips, it's very chest heavy on that, but it's also very tricep heavy. So we're training those same muscle groups in a slightly different plane while still having a big multi-joint movement. It's gonna carry over, right? It's just a good mix and match. We're a little heavier triceps than chest on the dips versus the bench. So a big principle here too to finish this up with is we're reducing volume and intensity of your accessories as we get closer to the peak while increasing intensity of the main lifts. Now for a push-pull, since this is a specific deadlift and bench program, we do, like I said, have dips and squats as your complementary movements, but we're actually gonna dial those way back so we take all of our body's energy and put it right into bench and deadlift because that's what we are focusing on this lift, or on this protocol at least. So that's something too where to conserve energy, to put more resources into what matters, and also to give you a mental boost, make sure you're decreasing the volume and intensity of all these accessories. You should think now two of my 4 workouts are now significantly lighter, therefore I can put all of my energy and resources into the 2 heavy ones. That's a mental thing you should think and believe, but it is true. That's what's actually happening. So this is kind of an overview of the 12-week, 1,000-pound subtotal program. It is available on Train Heroic right now. You can check out that link in the description below to get your copy. But most importantly, I really want you to realize and understand it does not matter how good your program is if your technique sucks, if you're not following all these movement patterns correctly, if you're not sleeping, if you're not eating correctly, you don't have the right strategy. Even things like your support circle and wellness for your life really matter. So that's why I would really encourage you to check out clubstrongman.com because we do provide you not only a community of people to encourage you and uplift you, but also coaches that are going to give you exactly what you need to progress, get better, and refine your technique while following a program like this. So if you sign up for clubstrongman.com, you can get this program included in your membership, plus coaching, an awesome community, lots of discounts on other cool stuff, plus occasional special guest VIP calls from World's Strongest Man athletes and other top professionals in the sport of strongman. So check it out, clubstrongman.com. If you have any questions about the program or maybe your bench press, deadlift, anything like that, I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching and have a championship day.